It's The Last Stand. And here is your host, Brian Custer.
That's right. It is The Last Stand, where we bring you some of the biggest names in the sport. I'm Brian Custer, and joining us today is the WBO light heavyweight champion of the world. He's known as a beast and the common man. He is Joe Smith Jr. Joe, welcome to The Last Stand.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's my pleasure.
Listen, it's not every day that not only do I get to talk to one of the top fighters in the sport, but a guy who I used to call their early fights. I mean, it's been a long time since those fights you had in New York City, Broadway boxing. Talk to me about those days. How did those early fights, club fights, build you to the fighter that you are today?
Hey, they all played a big part in my career, That's where I got the experience. I had some decent fights early in my career and that's what got me to where I am today.
And I thought the interesting thing was when I was calling those fights earlier in your career, you were still like, let's say, an everyday laborer. I mean, that's how you got the moniker, the common man. So not only were you boxing and training, but you were working a 9 to 5. Sometimes I remember talking to you, you said like 12 hours a day. Give the fans some insight on what your days were like early on in your career.
Well, yeah, early on, I had a tough labor job where, I had to get up early, drive 2 hours to work, and then, do labor work. We were sweeping floors, doing construction, concrete work. We did it all. And after that, I drive straight to the gym, work out, and do what I had to do.
Was there any point, Joe, where you said, man, I don't know if this is going to work out. This is too much. Or did you always believe that all of this would pay off?
I mean, no, I mean, there was definitely some tough times. It was up and down. Definitely when I was working every day, it was hard. And throughout, luckily enough, I was able to take time when I needed it to train for the fights. I had to sacrifice a little bit, and give up having some things, but it paid off in the end. I became a world champion, so I'm happy with all my decisions.
And I love it because now, not only are you a champion, you're now a business owner. I mean,
Yeah.
you own your business now. So talk to me about that and your business.
Yeah, after each fight, I was trying to put away a little money. And, I believe it was after the Hopkins fight where me and my dad decided to get together and get a tree company going because, he was in the tree business his whole life. I worked pretty much with the tree companies on and off since I was a kid. So, we decided to do it and it's paying off. It was a little slow start, but, it's turning out to be great. We're getting bigger and bigger
And how
each
do you
year.
juggle? Yeah, how do you juggle it, Joe? How do you juggle the boxing and the
Well,
business?
right. Well, right now, I focus 100% on my fight. I don't worry about the business because I know my father's got it under control. That's what he's done his whole life. He was always a manager or something for big tree companies, and so he's glad to be out there running his own business rather than working for somebody.
Man, that's great. That's great what you've done and provided for your family like that. You've got this rabid fan base. New Yorkers go hard for their fighters anyway, but you got a great fan base. What is it about Joe Smith Jr. that appeals to the everyday guy?
I guess I'm one of them. I'm a tough, guy. I always put on a great show when I'm fighting, and I bring over my hard labor, working skills to the ring.
Okay, Joe. So mid-January, you're taking on another big puncher in Callum Johnson, who's got just one loss, and that one loss was to Artur Beterbiev, and that was a slugfest that he and Beterbiev had, which really only lasted like 4 rounds between those two. How do you see the fight with Callum Johnson playing out?
Well, I could see it being the same type of fight. I believe he's gonna come right after me and try to knock me out early. So, I'm prepared to, have a tough fight and go to war. I'm expecting him to come right for me, and I plan to do the same. And just I want to look good doing it. I want to make a statement in this fight. I want to look better than Beterbiev did. So, I'm putting in the work in the gym and the hours, and hopefully everything works out great.
And how important is this fight to your career going forward?
It's very important. Each and every fight that I have is very important. You lose a fight now at this stage, you're set back for a long time, pretty much. So, you don't want a loss at this point. I just won the belt. I got to get past him, and then there's so many big opportunities on the table, and I know that. So that's why I'm giving it everything I got on the date. And I know he's going to be doing the same because this is probably going to be his last shot at a world championship. So, I'm expecting the best of him, and I'm sure he's expecting the best of me, and that's what I'm going to give him. So, ready to go.
You caught COVID in October, which is raging now across the country. How did it affect you, and do you see it having any effect on you come fight night?
Um, well, at the time when I was sick, I got it pretty bad. I went to the hospital, was there for 2 nights. But since I've recovered, I've been feeling pretty good. I can't say I'm having any side effects from it. I feel mentally good, physically. The toughest part about, the COVID going on right now is just getting sparring partners, and it's a little stressful going to the gym. I try to get to the gym when there's nobody there. I try to avoid people because, I don't want to risk losing out on another fight again. This is a big opportunity for me, and I want to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about how this fight, and there's big opportunities. You are, if you're victorious, there's been a lot of talk that you win your fight, and if Danny Jacobs wins his fight in February, that you two would meet this summer. Is that a fight you want?
It's not really a fight that I want. The fights I want to unify. I want to fight Beterbiev and Bivol. But you know, really, those are the only fights I want to take. Is those two, unless Canelo comes up and he wants to fight, I'll take that fight. But I want to unify. I
I
don't
think
want to
that's
go
interesting.
backwards. I'm trying to get all the belts.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, I think it was just recently though that Bob Arum said something that you kind of mentioned. He said he believed that Canelo will either fight you or Arthur Beterbiev. Do you think that
Mhm.
fight is realistic for your future?
With this sport, you never know. But if they're willing to come to me and fight, I'll take any one of them. Those are the fights I want. But I know I got to get past Johnson and make a statement with him, and that's going to open up the doors for these big fights to happen.
Another gentleman who's been very vocal about Joe Smith Jr. Is Anthony Yard. He says he wants to
Hmm.
fight you if you're victorious. Is that a fight you're
Of
interested in at
course.
all?
Well, everyone's going to want to fight me now. I got the world championship. It's around my waist, and everybody wants it. So, you know, I'm interested in the fight, but what I really want is to unify and become the one champion.
I love it. I love it. So I guess it begs the question here, Joe. If you had your choice, uh, and your next fight could either be Jacobs, could either be Yard, could be Canelo, could be Beterbiev. Which guy do you want?
At this point, everybody would, choose the Canelo fight just because, it's money to be made there. But really, for my legacy, and I want to, be known as a great fighter. So I would like to fight Beterbiev and Bivol.
I love it. I love it. Um, Listen, you kind of made mention of it earlier in our conversation, but in my opinion, I believe that your career just really skyrocketed and took off, and people realized that Joe Smith Jr. is a problem. 5 years ago, when you not only knocked out Bernard Hopkins, but knocked him through the ropes, ended his career. What did that victory do for you?
Yeah, that victory definitely jump started my career. Got me recognized and got me other fights. And it was a great experience being in there with somebody with experience like him, and I've learned a lot from it.
How was it even the lead up to it? Because Bernard likes to play the mind games, and even in the build up to the fight. What did that do for
Yeah.
you?
Oh, that was the best part about it because Hopkins was making everything about him and trying to get in my head the whole time, but I didn't let it happen. He couldn't get to me, and I think that's what played a big part in the fight because I think I got in his head by, there was one point we went to we had a sit down meeting with him, and he was just talking about himself the whole time. And they come and ask me, they go, "So Joe, what's your favorite moment about Hopkins?" And I was like, honestly, I never even watched the guy fight before. Yeah, he was so mad. He got so mad. It was one of the best moments of my career.
That's tremendous. And
I
you're
think,
right. If you don't beat Hop and you don't say anything good about him, bro, that's always going to get under his skin. That's tremendous. I love that
yeah,
out of you.
I said honestly, I don't even know the guy. I never seen him fight before, and he started punching the table, and I knew I was getting in his head.
uh, so 2 years ago, and you mentioned this as well, you get your first title shot against Dimitri Bivol right here in New York. That fight, really good fight. It goes 12 rounds. He gets the decision. After that fight, did you think like, man, I may not ever get a title shot again? What was your feelings after that fight?
Yeah, after that fight, I didn't think I was gonna get another shot, but everything worked out. I got my shot again, and I took advantage of it and got it. But during that fight, I learned a lot, man, and it really helped me fighting somebody as good as him. It taught me I needed to work on my boxing and movement a little more, be a little sharper, and just having the experience of going the 12 rounds really, you know, took me to another level. Coming into that fight, I was coming off a long layoff due to my injury, and I had one tune-up fight. But in the fight, I can't take nothing from Bivol. He was a great champion. I actually had him out at the end of the 10th round, and that's one of my best moments. I always looked back to that round, and I'm like, man, I was this close to becoming a world champion right there. But I knew I could do it because I hurt one of the best fighters in the world right there at that moment. So I knew if I just put a little more time and work in that I can actually achieve it, and I did it.
You certainly did. And listen, this past April, you finally become world champion. What was it like when they said "and the new" and they mentioned your name? What resonated through your body when you heard that?
At the time, it was just like, wow, it was just a relief. It's like, yeah, I finally did it. I did it. I'm done. Let's see what comes next from it. And when I got home, it started sinking in more and more, and it was like, it's just a great feeling to finally accomplish something that I've been working on since I was 13 years old. So
How different is it now that you're champion and realizing that now you've got all of these guys who are like Joe Smith Jr., hungry, wanting a title shot
mhm.
and calling you out where you've been on the opposite end of that. What is that like now,
Yeah.
now that you're a champion?
I mean, it's great, but I don't let any of that get to my head. Like I look at it as I'm still the underdog, and I'm looking to still make a statement and to prove myself. So I believe that having that mindset is gonna help me succeed and be even better in this sport.
What do you think the sport of boxing, whether they don't realize or don't know about Joe Smith Jr.? Listen, we know you're a world champion. We know you can punch. What do you think that they
hmm
still haven't realized about Joe Smith Jr. that they're about to find out here going forward?
I mean, one thing I don't get a lot of credit for is my boxing ability, and because I could actually I'm a pretty decent boxer. I could box. I wouldn't be here if I couldn't. But a lot of the fights that I have, I'm not supposed to be a boxer. I'm in there to bring the fight to these guys. You can't box with a guy who's 6'4", 6'3". I gotta get inside and keep pressure on them. This guy, he's a shorter guy, so I'm expecting to be able to show off a little more of my boxing capabilities and look good in this fight.
And I love it, Joe. Like you talk about that, you are like the common everyday guy. So, what do you think about the sport of boxing nowadays? Because it seems like guys who can fight or who are world champions, it's great. But it seems like there are guys who are on social media who have millions or hundreds of thousands of followers are the popular guys, and the guys
Yeah.
making a lot of money because of their following. What do you think about the sport of boxing right
hmm
now?
I mean, I think boxing's it's a great sport, but I wish there was ways where they can make like fighters like me, make more money through using those other guys. Like you look at Jake Paul and Logan Paul coming over, and they're making millions of dollars, fighting nobodies. But I still love the sport, but people just got to know the difference between that and what I am, because it's two totally different things.
Joe, for people who watch and listen to the podcast, we let them submit questions. We got some questions for you through social media, so let's get right into them. The first one is from Carlos. He asks on Twitter, after your fight with Callum Johnson, who do you want to fight next?
Fight next. We were going over that. I want to fight Beterbiev or Canelo. Those are the two fights I want next. And then if once I get Beterbiev and unify those belts, then I want to go for Bivol and redeem myself. But the next one's between those two, Beterbiev or Canelo.
And this one from Chuck from Twitter, kind of the same question, but he says, what do you think of Canelo being a potential opponent for you next year?
It's great. It gives you motivation to get in the gym and work your ass off, because that's the big money right there. But I'm looking at more than just making the big money. I want to keep a name for myself, and I want to fight the best. And
Like
he's the best. So
Like it. Raj from Twitter asks, after watching Better BF bleed but still knock out Brown, what do you feel about a potential fight against him? And do you see flaws in Better BF's game?
better be a um. Hey, I mean, with his last couple of fights, I've realized that he's actually a tougher guy than I thought. Because I've seen him get rocked before by Johnson and a couple other people, so I thought maybe his chin was questionable, but I seen in his last fight, even with Marcus, that he's a tough guy, and he keeps a lot of pressure on you. But I believe with my power and boxing abilities, I think it'll make for a great fight.
Last one, this one from Twitter as well. It says, how is it being champ at 175? And are there any big names in the division, like the two top fights at 175 for you, and why?
Top fights again, once again, is Beterbiev, Canelo, and Bivol. Bivol, that's going to be a big fight for me because, that's the one true loss I feel I have. The other two were injuries. Bivol, he's the one guy who really beat me.
Love it. All right, Joe, we've come to the last section of this show. We call it The Last Stand. I'm just going to ask you a series of questions. You give me the first thing that comes to your mind. You ready?
All right, let's do it.
Here we go. There are only 4 world champions born from Long Island: Buddy McGirt, Chris Algieri, Jamel Herring, and Joe Smith Jr. Who's the best of the 4?
Well, Chris ain't over yet, but I'm going to be the best.
I love it. Philly, DC, New York, LA, all known as fighting cities. Which city, in your opinion, has the best fighters and why?
I mean, I love New York, and also Los Angeles was great. I fought there a few times and it was wonderful.
Who's got the best fighters, though, out of those cities?
New York.
All right. In your
Because I'm here.
Yeah, you're right. There you go. In your opinion, who's the biggest puncher at 175?
I say it's between me and Beterbiev.
Okay.
It's it's kind of hard to really, get one on there. I mean, he's knocked out everyone he's fought, but I believe I fought more competition than he has.
Who's the best fighter at 175?
Right now, I believe it's Bivol.
How about that?
I believe it will be me, but I give him the spotlight right now. He's a great fighter. He always looks great in all his fights, and once I redeem myself against him, then I'll pick myself for number 1.
Next question. Who is Joe Smith Jr.'s favorite fighter? Who's the one guy fighting right now that you say, man, he's fighting, let me turn him on. I enjoy watching this person fight.
I enjoy watching Bivol, and honestly, Tank Davis always puts on a great show. I kind of, I like his boxing ability, and he always throws that nice uppercut.
You're right about that. You're absolutely right. Last question to you, champ. At this time next year in 2022, Joe Smith Jr. will be, you finish the sentence.
Unified champion, or looking, have one fight away to become a unified champion.
I love it. Let me tell you something, champ. Certainly proud of you. I mean, again, getting the opportunity to call some of your first fights, and now looking at you now as a world champion, I'm really proud of what you've done. And I just wish you nothing but all the success in the future.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Folks, that's what we do here on The Last Stand. We bring you the biggest names in the sport like Joe Smith Jr. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next week.